A dying star just built a lion's face 6,500 light-years from Earth, and NASA's newest telescope just filmed it in more detail than anyone has ever seen. What you're about to see isn't science fiction. It's the actual death of a sun-like star, caught mid-collapse, and it's happening right now, whether we're watching or not. This is NGC 2392. Most people call it the Lion Nebula, and the story behind this image is stranger and scarier than most people realize. Let's rewind first. In 1787, a German-born astronomer named William Herschel pointed his handmade telescope into the constellation Gemini and spotted a fuzzy, glowing patch of light. He had no idea what he was looking at. For centuries, astronomers just called these fuzzy blobs planetary nebulae because through small telescopes, they looked vaguely like the disks of planets. That name stuck, even though it's completely wrong. These objects have nothing to do with planets at all. What Herschel actually found was a corpse, the corpse of a star. Fast forward to the year 2000. The Hubble Space Telescope, then 21 years old, aimed its optics at NGC 2392 and captured something remarkable: a glowing structure that looked eerily like a human face wrapped in a fur-lined hood. For years, this object was nicknamed the Ulking Eskimo Nebula. Astronomers saw a parka hood, others saw a lion's mane. Either way, one thing was clear: this was not a normal cloud of gas. It had structure, it had shape, it looked deliberate. Now, in August 2026, the James Webb Space Telescope has gone back to the same coordinates in space, and what it found makes Hubble's 26-year-old image look almost primitive by comparison. Here's why that matters, and here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. At the exact center of this nebula is a white dwarf, the collapsed, superheated core of a star that used to look a lot like our sun. This star ran out of nuclear fuel. It could no longer hold itself together. So it did what every star like it eventually does. It became unstable, pulsed violently, and began shedding its outer layers into space, layer after layer, for thousands of years. What's left behind is a stellar skeleton smaller than Earth, but so hot and so radioactive that it is now cooking everything around it from the inside out. Webb's instruments reveal that this dead star's radiation is punching through the surrounding gas, ionizing hydrogen, and inflating what scientists describe as a expanding bubble, the very same bubble that forms the face of the lion. The white dwarf sits right where the nose would be, and it is not passive. It is actively destroying the dust cloud around it, clearing a path outward at this very moment. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange. Not everything in that bubble is being destroyed. Webb detected dense, compact clumps of dust, glowing red, orange, and yellow in the infrared images, that have somehow survived the Death Star's onslaught. Scientists believe these surviving clumps are acting like shields, physically protecting the material hiding behind them from being vaporized by radiation. Some of these clumps even trail tails behind them, like cosmic comets frozen mid-flight, streaming away from the blast. Astronomers still don't fully understand why the swept-up gas organizes itself into these complex rings and shells instead of dispersing evenly. This remains, according to NASA and the European Space Agency, an active and ongoing area of research. In other words, even with a multi-billion-dollar infrared space telescope pointed directly at it, this nebula is still keeping secrets. Let's talk scale for a second, because it's easy to lose sight of how enormous this thing actually is. NGC 2392 stretches roughly 2.5 light-years across. That means if you tried to cross this nebula at the speed of light, the fastest speed physically possible in our universe, it would still take you years just to get from one side to the other. And this entire structure took several thousand years to form into the shape you're seeing right now. Every wisp of gas, every glowing filament, is a record of a slow-motion stellar death that has been unfolding since before recorded human history began paying attention to it. But here is the detail that should really stop you in your tracks. Astronomers estimate that the Lion Nebula will not last forever. In roughly 10,000 years, the gas and dust will have drifted far enough from the central white dwarf that the glow will fade, and the nebula will effectively disperse into the emptiness of space. 10,000 years sounds like an eternity to us. In cosmic terms, NASA itself describes it as a relatively short period. This dazzling structure, the one blowing up your screen right now, is temporary. Webb's image is essentially freezing a fleeting cosmic event in time, the same way a photograph freezes a firework mid-explosion before it vanishes. Now, why should any of this matter to you personally, sitting here on Earth? Because this exact fate is written into our own solar system's future. Scientists confirm that our sun, the very star keeping you alive right now, is expected to undergo the same transformation in roughly 5 billion years. It will swell, become unstable, shed its outer layers into space, and leave behind its own white dwarf core, glowing quietly at the center of its own expanding nebula. In a very real sense, what Webb photographed in the Lion Nebula is a preview. It's a mirror held up billions of years into the future, showing us exactly how our own solar system will end its story. Let's talk about how Webb actually pulled this image off, because the technology itself is almost as wild as the object it's photographing. Webb combined two instruments to build this composite: NIRCam, its near-infrared camera, and MIRI, its mid-infrared instrument. Unlike Hubble, which primarily captures visible light, the same kind of light your eyes can detect, Webb is built to see heat. Infrared light passes straight through cosmic dust that would normally block our view, revealing structures that are completely invisible to optical telescopes. That's exactly why Webb's version of this nebula shows details Hubble's 26-year-old image never could: dense pockets of surviving dust, faint haze of ionized gas, and structural complexity that had simply never been seen before. And in the background of this image, almost as an afterthought, sit dozens of distant galaxies, some appearing as tiny points of orange light, others showing visible spiral arms, their light having traveled across unimaginable stretches of space and time just to land in this one photograph. NGC 2392 might be the star of the image, but it's sharing the frame with entire galaxies, each one home to hundreds of billions of stars of their own. Here's a fact that tends to get lost in the spectacle. This is a planetary nebula, meaning it represents one of the most common ways stars like our Sun end their lives. Massive stars, many times larger than the Sun, die in violent supernova explosions. But medium-sized stars, Sun-like stars, go out differently. They don't explode. They deflate. Slowly, gently, over thousands of years, they exhale their outer atmospheres into space, while their cores collapse into dense, hot white dwarfs. It's less of an explosion and more of a long, glowing exhale, and the Lion Nebula is one of the most photogenic examples of that process ever captured. So what exactly are we looking at when we see this image? We're looking at the final, radiant breath of a star. We're looking at physics happening in real time, on a scale so massive it's almost impossible to process. We're looking at gas and dust being sculpted by radiation into a shape that, purely by cosmic coincidence, resembles the face of one of Earth's most powerful predators. And we're looking, whether we like it or not, at our own solar system's distant future. Webb didn't just take a prettier picture than Hubble, it revealed physical processes we couldn't previously observe. Dust surviving against all odds, radiation carving structure out of chaos, and a corpse of a star still actively shaping its surroundings 6,500 light-years away. This image was released by NASA, in collaboration with the European Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency, and processed by the Space Telescope Science Institute as part of Webb's ongoing survey of stellar evolution. Now here's the question I want you to sit with. If our own sun is going to do exactly this in 5 billion years, expand, destabilize, shed its layers, and leave nothing behind but a glowing white dwarf like the one at the heart of this lion's face, does that change how you think about our place in the universe? Drop your honest answer in the comments, and follow this page if you want to see the next hidden discovery Webb pulls out of deep space before anyone else shows it to you.